Hey, good afternoon. I'm live for episode 27 of Angel in the Afternoon. There we go. Just needed to make sure everything was perfect. So, a couple minutes late, but that's all right. I had to do some things. So, yeah, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. So, like I said yesterday, this episode will have a couple of things, and we're going to talk about. Excuse me, I'm kind of sweating here. So there isn't much air. There isn't any air conditioning here, so yep. Let me let everybody know I'm live because I don't want. Okay, so let's let everybody know that I'm live on Twitter and stuff. So, whoops. Okay, here we go. I already did that. All right. So that's that. Let's set up. Let me go cancel that out. Let's go to Twitter. I have to. Let's see here. Where's my bookmarks? Here we go. I'll get to him. Yeah, we did that. Uh, well, hello. Just setting up. I'm running a little late, so. What was I going to cover? I don't remember. Give me a second. What's funny is I kind of forgot what I was going to cover. I had to remind myself, which is why I'm kind of staring into the screen here, just setting up. So, how's everybody doing today? Oops, let's just do that. Okay. All right. So, whoops, sorry about that. Microphone keeps moving. Do 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 do. All right, so almost ready. Sorry about that. I just literally put on a chicken to roast, so and I was cleaning up, which is why I'm kind of late today. And I should have. I usually like to set up before, but of course, I always end up having to do something around here, which makes me late. Uh, ah, oh my god! Like the insanity of this. Okay. Let's see here. All right, well, I'm ready to start. I just need to make sure all my tabs are in the right place so I'm not confused. Last thing I want to do is like confuse myself. Last thing I want to do is confuse myself and not know where the hell I'm at, which has happened before. So let's see. Are you really? I don't know why Sam Cedar is in my timeline here, but he had to cancel Majority Report today because his kid had COVID. He might have COVID too. Like it's 2020 again with these people. It's just absurd. It's like, oh, it's 2020. I mean, it's not like it's 2023, not like it's 2020, and you have to stay home. It's just absurd. So let's see here. As this. All right, so we can get started now. Let's see. Yeah, definitely, because it's already 12:38, and I have until probably 2 or 2:30 today at the latest. So, all right, let me just do this. Let me actually share my screen. Here we go. That's too small still. Unless it's me today, I don't know. So I'm going to start it with this. I've seen and heard. Let me try it again. I've seen and heard about this conspiracy theory about 15 years ago, but I never took it seriously. Maybe I regret that because it'd be very interesting. I saw a video on this like 10 years ago talking about how some people believe that the U.S. government is a corporation. Not that it's run by corporations, that it literally is a corporation. So I saw this on Twitter the other day and I was like, holy crap, I even forgot about this theory. But it's very like a fascinating look into it. So I would read you this whole thing, but the video down here literally says the exact same thing that's up here. So it makes no sense for me to read all this. So we're gonna watch this then. It's about 5 minutes, and then
during the Civil War.
Whoops. It's about 4 minutes, and then after that, I'll react to it.
This was all masterfully planned and executed. During the Civil War, the Constitutional Republic abandoned Congress, which forced President Lincoln to issue martial law. At this time, the Republic was taken over by foreign insurgents who replaced it with the United States of America, Inc., in all caps, in 1871. A corporation that had the same name, the United States. What better way to replace it without anyone noticing that they just got turned into a business and commercialized? Now, this corporation was later purchased by the banking powers behind the Fed in 1912. The Fed was created in 1913. Why did this happen? Well, the US was bankrupt. When we sold the United States to foreign banking cartels, if you will, salvage liens were placed on every asset. Check this out, including the people of the new federalized states. Now let's fast forward to 1933. An income tax was placed on the people to pay these foreign bankers who own the IMF, which owns the IRS. Look into what the IRS actually is. Who is the IMF owned by? You got to follow the money. Who funds it? It's the same people that own the United States Inc. Same few families, and they're not American. So when I say foreign insurgents, that's what I mean. So 1933, USA Inc. goes bankrupt. An income tax is placed on its people. In other words, you and I were turned into property. Look it up. We were turned into cattle, and we were collateralized in order to turn us humans, flesh and blood, into a means of paying off a massive debt. But the problem is that while you are technically a person, you've entered into contracts that you're completely unaware of, such as your birth certificate, social security number, etc., that are all saying, I consent to being collateralized. You're living as property, as opposed to living as a blood and flesh natural being on paper.
A lot of this comes across as the sovereign citizen theory, which is, you don't have, you're not actually, you could follow whatever laws you feel like following. There's no United States, there's no court system, it's all invalid. That's a lot of this is coming across to me is that, like, it's like a sovereign citizen type of thing.
Paper, you are property. You are a corporation right now. You might be hearing this and thinking, we're fucked. We're property? Are you kidding me? And that's true. And property doesn't have rights. But here is both the blessing and the curse. There are multiple of you. Just like there's multiple United States of Americas. Sleight of hand, remember? What hat do they want to wear? There are multiple of you. The insane irony in all of this is the fact that they are actually now liable for all of your alleged obligations, aka debts. That's what a debt means. You can play a wrong move in chess and still win the game. And commerce is chess. Their greatest attempt to set us back actually is their greatest weakness. How can we owe debt if the United States is liable for all of its property? If we're its property, then it's the United States' burden to pay our debt. And that is exactly what the law says. I'm going to leave you guys with two different codes that I highly recommend you look into. First is going to be the House Joint Resolution Act 192. And when that occurred, the dollar was turned into what is called Federal Reserve debt notes. If we're being asked to pay debts, but all we are given from the system is debt notes, aka fiat money, to pay back those debts, how can we pay a debt with a debt? I just want you to sit with that. They never gave you lawful money. They never gave you gold. They never gave you silver. The other side of it is looking into 18 USC 8. 18 United States Code 8. You're going to come to find out that that's literally telling you that the United States is liable for all debt. All of your debt, the United States is liable for it.
All right, well, that's enough of that. Well, I mean, a lot of this seems to come across as sovereign citizen type of stuff. But the reason why I wanted to play it and cover it for a bit is very simply because if you think about it, why does the U.S. Let me just do this. Why does the U.S. always insist on doing what the corporation wants or what billionaire wants or what the bankers want? I mean, does this make... It makes somewhat kind of sense when you think about it, where you're like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the government does exactly what the corporations want it to do, because ultimately they are ultimately the United States is a corporation itself. So it's looking to make as much money as they can. So that tells me that it kind of a weird way, even though I don't buy what most of that video said, I mean, but I was very fast. I was watching this. Yeah, I think the other day, I'm thinking to myself, after everything that we know about how the government always does whatever the corporation asks it to, what if the United States is a corporation? This is not a country. This is not a sovereign country. It's just a corporation that is owned by banks. That's why everything the government does goes to them, because ultimately they are the board, they are the investors, they make most of the money through our income taxes. So even though it's an interesting brain exercise to think of, like, wait, the government does whatever billionaires and corporations ask them to and donate to, not because it's the politicians are indebted to the government, to the donors, but the government itself is just a corporate entity. Very interesting to me. I thought it was very fascinating to think about that. You do that brain exercise for myself. So I thought of it as just very fascinating and a brain exercise that you guys maybe should think about doing too. What if the United States government is just a corporate entity, and what if our income taxes are nothing, are the income for that corporation, the consistent income that is forced on us? This is an interesting thought process, and which is why it's like there's a lot of tax protesters that refuse to pay taxes for that reason, which is another theory, another alternate history theory just at itself, which is very interesting. They're called tax protesters. They're called tax protesters, people that refuse to pay taxes because they believe that that scared the shit out of me. They believe that the tax that the United States government doesn't actually exist. It's a certain video that I'm looking for, which explains tax protesting, but I don't see it right now. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Or at least I thought there was. I've seen it before, but I should have looked up for it before the show, but I didn't really get a chance to do it. So, yeah. So this is very interesting thought process to think of. I'll think of it more for sure. Maybe I could write a Substack piece on it because I'm already planning one piece, which I haven't gotten around to writing yet, which is the liberalism as a religion. And I already have like 10 commandments in my head, like liberals have to believe, or else then, they're not really liberals and they'll be excommunicated from their religion. I've talked about this somewhat before on Twitter, but I never really wrote it out into a full piece or article or on a video form or anything like that. So, mic keep moving. Make sure to keep that door open. So, let's see. Now I'm gonna go to the now we got some liberals who are so desperate to get rid of Trump that they want get rid of this. They want to use the 14th Amendment in order to get rid of Donald Trump. So yeah, you know what? That doesn't work too well. No. That works a little better though. Yep. Trying to figure out which one's the best. So let me make this a tiny bit bigger again so I can you guys actually see it. It's still kind of small though. All right. So first I have to read Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Because we have a lot of Democrats that want to keep Trump off the ballot using Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So first I have to read it so we understand what it means before we discuss. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 following the Civil War to outline criteria for disqualifying someone from office. It states, and this is full thing here, no person shall be a senator, representative of Congress, or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who have previously taken an oath as member of Congress or officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States of America, shall engage in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 in each house, remove such disability. So that's a really long paragraph. Basically, what it means is you are disqualified from holding office if you have, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the state. So it's against the state. So this is what they're using. A lot of Democrat state senators, Democrat secretaries, states, and attorney generals want to use in order to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, no matter whether he wins the GOP nomination or not. But meanwhile, these same people will tell you that Donald Trump is the authoritarian, Donald Trump is the fascist, and without a conviction, by the way. If Trump were convicted of insurrection or rebellion, then that's fine. Then, okay, that's different. But there's no conviction against Trump. Hell, he hasn't even been charged yet. So what are we talking about here? Like, it's like now all of a sudden, who's the authoritarian now? Is it Trump or is it the Democrats? I gotta keep this door open as much as I can. I gotta keep this door open because somebody may be coming over. So it's like I had to make sure I hear the door. But yeah, like I said on Twitter many times, follow me at AngelJRivera08. That's a shameless plug. But like I said on Twitter many times, the Democrats are the much more effective authoritarians. The Republicans are clowns, like they wannabe authoritarians, but ultimately the Democrats are definitely the much more effective authoritarians. Let's do that real quick. I want to see if there's something else I should be reading. I want to read. Huh. So we do have a former government official, actually disqualified using the 14th Amendment. So let's see. Can you guys see that? Not really. So let me. All right. There we go. Official removed from office. Official removed from office under 14th Amendment speaks out as Trump's case looms. They started with me, but it's always been about Trump. So let's see. Get rid of that. As the legal battle begins to brew over whether the 14th Amendment disqualifies Donald Trump from the 2024 presidential election because of January 6th, which would mark an unprecedented and controversial development, ABC News recently spoke with one politician who had removed under that same argument. Former Otero County, New Mexico Commissioner Chuy Griffin was disqualified almost a year ago after Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics crew sued to eject him from his role under the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Section 3 states, blah, blah, blah. I already read that. Griffin 3 case was a bench trial decided by a state judge, and he has since twice appealed to the New Mexico Supreme Court to no avail. Griffin was convicted of trespassing in the U.S. Capitol 2 years ago. Though he said he did not enter the building with the mob, he was found not guilty of a disorderly conduct charge. He served jail time in Washington, D.C. after being found guilty in 2022. So he was found guilty of what exactly? I don't really understand. I don't really understand what he was found guilty of. He's part of Cowboys for Trump, blah, blah, blah. Again, he wasn't charged with insurrection. He wasn't convicted of an insurrection or rebellion. He's just charged with trespassing, it seems like. So, again, I don't know what justification they use under the 14th Amendment to remove him. And because what it seems like is you have to have some sort of conviction of rebellion or insurrection, because it does say there in Section 3 that your crime can be your disability, aka your crime can be forgiven if 2/3 of Congress and 2/3 of the House vote to forgive you. So it assumes that you would have. The way I understand it is you would have to have some sort of conviction here, because if you don't, then this is all kind of pointless. So let's go to some videos now. All right, wait. All right, what's the 14th Amendment? Which one should I watch here? No, that's. You know what? Let's do. You know what I could do. Hold on. Let me. And why did the video I wanted disappeared? Sorry about that. So give me a second. Conviction not needed under the 14th. Well, to me that's a major problem then, if that's true, because you would assume that you would need a conviction, or at least to me. because that you can remove anybody from office under that logic. You can you can remove anybody from office under that logic, because it's like, hey, he did insurrection or rebellion. We don't. It seems like you don't have to have any evidence for that. You just could remove anybody from office. It's like that commissioner who allegedly was there on January 6th. He was just there. He didn't. You could remove anybody from office under that logic. So to me, that's kind of a problem. If Democrats start to use this, all of a sudden you'll see Republicans using this standard, and they'll start removing each other from office. So I don't. Democrats are making a huge mistake if they want to play that game. Let's see. Oh my God, it's absurd. MSNBC. Let's go to that. Is MSNBC is giddy. Is not paying is considered insurrection? It's a good question. To me, it's like, if you don't pay your taxes, is that a betrayal to the country? That's kind of an interesting legal question. I don't think so. I mean, I've never seen anybody charged with tax evasion be charged with insurrection or rebellion as well against the United States. So we don't put any ideas in Washington's head and Washington D.C.'s head. I'll tell you that much. I mean, but you could make that argument that yes, it's likely this MSNBC, but they're giddy about Trump, possibly be removed from office because of the 14th Amendment. So we'll watch this and then I'll react as I see necessary.
6 Colorado voters, Republicans and independents, are trying to block Donald Trump from running for president in their state. They filed a lawsuit in a state district court in Denver yesterday, alleging that under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Donald Trump should be barred from running for office. Now, that clause states that anyone who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution as an elected official and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States or gave aid or comfort to the enemies thereof should not be able to hold federal or state office again. Former President Trump responded to all that today in the way that only he can.
What they're doing is, it's called election interference, and all these lawsuits get in the way. Now, the 14th Amendment is just a continuation of that. It's nonsense.
It's nonsense.
Nobody's even said it is insurrection. And by the way, there wasn't any guns in the Capitol. The insurrection is, frankly, the people that insurrected on the election and rigged the election. Those are the insurrectionists.
Joining me now to discuss this is Claire McCaskill, former Democratic senator from Missouri. Claire.
Forget that. I don't want to hear this bitch. But yeah, I mean, this is just absurd. It's like, it's kind of a problem. You don't need a conviction. You don't need any evidence. There's no trial. It says, hey, we believe that Donald Trump shouldn't run because we believe he did an insurrection. So he shouldn't be able to run. Please take him off the ballot. That's basically the argument you're making. There's no conviction. There's no evidence. There's no trial to decide whether he's guilty of this or not. It's just, we believe he's an insurrectionist. We believe he tried to rebel against the U.S. government. Please keep him off the ballot. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Your Honor. That's their argument, which is absurd. That's not an argument. That's not good enough. That's let's see.
The government watchdog group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, commonly known as CREW, has filed a lawsuit to bar former President Trump from appearing on presidential ballots in Colorado. The case claims
these are the same guys that banned that county commissioner in New Mexico I was just reading about. to ban him from running from being in office due to the 14th Amendment, even though, again, there's no conviction, there's no evidence, there's no trial. It's just, oh yeah, we believe that Donald Trump is guilty, so please ban him from running for president in our state. We greatly appreciate it, Your Honor. Like, what kind of argument is that? It's like there's no conviction, there's no trial, there's no evidence. It's just there's no chance for Donald Trump to respond to any of this. It's just please ban him off the ballot because we don't like him so much and we think he did an insurrection. Thank you. It's an absurd argument to make. Yes, I know each state will decide on it, but still, it's still an absurd argument. No matter how you spin it, it's still ridiculous. It's like, hey, we have no evidence, there's no trial, there's no chance Donald Trump to respond to any of this, but please remove him from office. Please remove him from the ballots. That way, because we don't trust the American people not to reelect Donald Trump. That's what they're saying. Like, they're desperate to keep him off the ballot because they're afraid he would win again.
Be disqualified from running due to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It's a post-Civil War provision that bans insurrectionists from holding public office. Lawrence Tribe joins us now with more. He's a law professor at Harvard Law School. Professor Tribe, thanks so much for being here.
I know this motherfucker. I mean, he's like a Democrat troll on Twitter. And I know he's a professor at Harvard, but he's just like such a Democrat hack.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Absolutely. Now, part of the reason that this has emerged into the public consciousness is because of an article that you co-wrote about the 14th Amendment this summer. And so I'm so glad you're here to help us break it down and understand it, because while it was something that was being discussed in Democratic circles and some conservative circles as well, now there are lawsuits. And there are secretaries of state in states across the country saying this is an issue. So it's clearly here to stay. So help us understand exactly what the 14th Amendment says and why you believe that it may disqualify the former president from office.
I'm glad to do so, Nancy. I co-wrote that article with very conservative, distinguished former federal judge, Judge Michael Ludig.
This is how they justify it. Hold on. It's how they justify it. Like, hey, it's not just liberals, also conservatives. We want to remove Trump for nothing, basically. Because there's no conviction, there's no trial, there's no nothing. It's just, let's remove Donald Trump from the ballots because we're afraid the American people actually reelect him. We're deathly afraid of that because we're liberals and we're shit libs and we hate Donald Trump. That's what this is all about. Secretary of State of each state will decide eligibility. Yes, I know that too, and most likely if they ban Trump off the ballot, they'll probably get sued. Each state is responsible to collect votes for the federal government. Yes, that's true too, and that's true. I mean, I don't know what do you want me to say. So let's keep going with this for now.
Included, as have all the scholars who have seriously studied this issue, that the language of the 14th Amendment means exactly what it says. It says that anyone who takes an oath to protect the American Constitution and holds office and then engages in an insurrection against the Constitution or gives it aid and comfort can never again hold office in the United States.
So where's the conviction? Where's the evidence? I mean, this is where I can't get over this. There's no evidence. There's no conviction. There's no trial. There's no due process. It's just we believe that Donald Trump is guilty because that's what we believe. And please, remove him from the ballot, Your Honor. It's not an argument. This is not good enough.
United States. That language is unambiguous. It's clear.
It's very ambiguous because there's no trial, there's no evidence being submitted, there's no chance for Donald Trump or anybody who's been accused under this provision to give a defense. I mean, there's nothing. It's just, oh yeah, please remove Donald Trump or whoever from office because we believe he's an insurrectionist and he did a rebellion. Thank you. I was like, I can't get over that. I can't get over that.
Applies to Donald Trump will have to be decided by states like Colorado. And when they decide, then the U.S. Supreme Court will almost certainly have the final word, and it will come quickly. The reason we believe that this language applies apart from all the facts we know about, is that it was put in the Constitution at a time when everyone realized that the executive branch would be unlikely to get convictions against former insurrectionists, because the president at the time was Andrew Johnson, who wanted to dismantle Union victory in the Civil War. But it was going to be a permanent provision, a permanent protection against turncoats, people who turned against the country. If they weren't prosecuted, or if they were acquitted rather than convicted, or if they were pardoned, it wouldn't make any difference, because an independent determination would be made that they were disqualified. This lawsuit, brought in Colorado by Citizens for Responsible Ethics in Washington, representing 6 Colorado voters who clearly have standing to bring the suit, is the strongest of many around.
So 6 Colorado voters get to decide for the whole state whether Donald Trump's on the ballot or not. I mean, I can't get over this. I can't get over how insane this is.
The country. It's brilliantly researched.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you think it's brilliant researched. What a hack.
The president is clearly frightened of it, because he made a motion today, a frivolous motion, to take it to federal court, where he obviously hopes to get it dismissed. He's scared of this suit, and he should be.
Yeah, because you should be scared. I'm sorry. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's no due process in any of this.
He just said today, in fact, he was doing a radio interview. He called it a trick that amounts to election interference. And, there is a question about...
To be fair, he isn't wrong. I mean, clearly these voters want to interfere in the entire state deciding where Donald Trump should be president or not again. I mean, this is clearly like, we cannot let the American people decide because we don't trust them. So we will sue in order to get him off the ballot.
Whose decision it is, who gets to decide whether he meets this standard or not, especially because he has not formally been charged with inciting an insurrection. He's been charged with a lot of things, but not that. And he certainly hasn't been...
It's actually a good question from the reporter, from the anchor.
...convicted of anything yet. And I hear what you're saying about convictions not necessarily being a bar that has to be met. But if there are no convictions, who is it that decides at the end of the day that the Republican frontrunner should be barred from serving as president?
Well, in the first instance, secretaries of state have to decide. Whichever way they go, whether they say that maybe he's an insurrectionist, but we want it to be left to the people, even though the Constitution says that they are disqualified, the same way that, Barack Obama or George W. Bush or, Bill Clinton, they might all be very popular, but they can't run because they're disqualified, having been president twice. This guy might be disqualified because he tried to overturn the very Constitution he pledged.
Based on what? You have nothing. It's just ridiculous.
Protect.
Based on your feelings, my guess is I feel that Donald Trump tried to do rebellion or insurrection, even though there's no evidence of it, but I feel it because I feel it, then we get to sue in order to keep him off the ballot. That's what they're saying.
It's decided one way or the other by secretaries of state. That will go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. They will be in quite a pickle because a majority of them, I think, are, either beholden to him or quite right-leaning, but they are also pledged to uphold the Constitution. If they decide that he...
under our Constitution, the Supreme Court has final say on how to interpret the said Constitution. So they can't be traitors to the country if they decide that Donald Trump should be on these ballots, because they interpret the 14th Amendment and what it means. Just like they interpret the Second Amendment and what that means. So if people don't like that system, they should change the Constitution. So I don't want to hear about how the Supreme Court are traitors because they decided to keep down Trump on all these ballots, even though we feel he did an insurrection. It's just nonsense. if you have a problem with the way Supreme Court is going to rule in this, probably, then you should probably change the Constitution to give Supreme Court less power. But you won't, because you won't. These people are far too cowardly to actually try to get change the Constitution. Excuse me.
He is eligible to run. They'll have to explain why, and we'll all be interested in hearing that explanation, given the clear
Okay, that's that. It's almost the end of the video anyway, so let's see. The law allows a challenge in the Supreme Court for violations of rights. Yep. The court case has to have a violation of liberty to be presented. There isn't a violation until the Secretary of State decides. Okay. Still, I mean, I think most of my points do stand. There's not much else here to cover. I mean, I still can't get over the fact that these people seriously think that this would be like acceptable somehow. You know, that most Trump supporters will say, okay, that's fine. Donald Trump's banned running 14th Amendment, so we'll support Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy instead. Come on. If these people really think that, then they're goddamn absurd, and all they're going to do is piss off a large chunk of the country by doing this, by trying to do this at least. Let's see here. So I covered that in videos yesterday. What's this? I gotta take a lot of this stuff out of here. What's this? Oops. Alright, let's play this moronic kid here real quick. Stay off the Adderall, kid. Alright. Let's do that. Okay.
A lot of people are surprised to learn how productive the Joe Biden presidency has actually been. Like, unemployment is at a 54-year low. He's created 13 million jobs. Inflation has gone down for like the...
First of all, these jobs are all shitty jobs, most likely. They're not good, well-paying, high-paying jobs where people can make a living and pay all their bills, pay their rent, and pay for their food. No, they're probably really shitty, really horrible jobs. And this kid is somewhere in the UK, I would guess, because the steering wheel on the right-hand side. Unless this is like inverted, this video, which is terrible editing. But yeah, I mean, just because there's all these new jobs doesn't mean they're good jobs. Most of them could be gig jobs, you know, like Uber Eats or Uber or stuff like that. I forget the other ones. Grubhub, you know, or whatever, you know, those type of jobs, which are shitty jobs. This kid's acting like they're good jobs, you know. Oh my God, Biden created 14 million jobs, guys. He should be reelected, right? That's what he said. I hope those are big checks because they're worth it, and this is the only way this would make any sense.
The 14th month in a row, he's invested more money than anyone in infrastructure in the last, 3 decades. Did you even know that? He passed the first meaningful gun reform in decades. He's invested more money in climate change than any...
You want to talk about climate change? I would shut up about that. Because Biden approved the Willow Project, which causes more drilling on public lands than any president in history. He also bombed the Nord Stream pipeline, which is the Russian pipeline, which caused major ecological damage in that area. So you want to talk about climate change? I would not. If I were a Biden hack, I wouldn't touch this because it doesn't make him look good. It makes you look like an idiot, like a hack. And look at this. He's like this. Hold on. He's like lay off the fucking Adderall, kid.
Any president ever. Like $500 billion. There's a lot of misinformation about that one. New leases for oil drilling projects have decreased 97% under Biden compared to Trump. Did you know that? The list goes on and on and on and on. He's been inclusive. He invests tons of money in mental health care. I mean...
Based on where? Where's that money in mental health care? I didn't even know about that alleged accomplishment.
Compare this to the other guy who's being
Compare this to the other guy. Like, stay off the Adderall, kid.
indicted 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many times on RICO charges. He's been impeached twice. He's got a second defamation lawsuit. He sexually assaults women. I mean, what are we doing? He's trying to keep himself out of jail. And the only thing I can ever hear about Joe Biden is they're like, Chris, Joe Biden is old. Joe Biden is old.
I could tell you plenty of why I'm anti-Biden, and it's not because he's old. This is ridiculous. Like, oh, well, all I heard was Joe Biden's old. Joe Biden's old. I just gave you 2 examples of the Willow Project and bombing a Nord Stream pipeline, which would make him a horrifyingly bad president, and he should not be reelected. On top of that, let's not forget saber rattling against 2 nuclear powers, Russia and China. Sorry. Russia basically pressuring the Russians into invading Ukraine and then giving Ukraine billions and billions and billions of dollars, and then saber rattling with China by giving money to Taiwan for weapons. Like, what the fuck are we? What is this administration doing? They're losing. Like, it's like they want World War III.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. We don't care.
Jesus Christ, kid, stay off the Adderall. Shit. It's like he's kind of like scary when he's like that. When these kids like that. This is Chris Mowry. He's the lackey of Harry Sisson. So he's his lackey there. He does whatever he agrees pretty much with Harry, his little buddy. So let's see here. Man, I'm kind of tired today. What else? Well, I mean, there was a lot of nonsense there. I'm wondering what else I should talk about. I don't want to just like staring into the camera like I'm some kind of like idiot. I don't want to be staring into the camera here like I'm got nothing to say, but you know. Okay, so let's see. Why did I just do that? Let's do that, actually. Don't know why. Yeah, that's done. A lot of this I already talked about in weeks past. I mean, Jesus, the idea that just drives me to go like, nope. It's just not good enough. It's just insane. All right, let's see if some breaking news I can talk about because I don't want. Let's news. Oh yeah. You know what's been debt will be paid by future generations without their consent. Yeah, that's the war. Well, there's always bomb money, there's always war money, and they're not been paying it. They're not going to pay it. Our future generations are going to pay it. It's like a credit card. It's like a credit card with no limit. You can charge as much as you want. And there's nothing that we can do about it because the government will always finance the wars or put it on their credit card and basically force other generations to pay for it when they're long dead. So let's see. We got. Not sure if you guys have heard this, but I just saw this right before I went on air this morning or this afternoon, which basically says, oh, well, the Fulton County grand jury who indicted Trump and his 19 other defendants, apparently they're recommending indictments against 7 other Republicans for no reason. Nobody asked them to do this, but they are insisting on indicting another 7 people, including Lindsey Graham and a few other Republican senators. I was like, what? I saw this. Like, really? Are we seriously discussing indicting more Republicans? For what? What did they do exactly? I don't understand this. These people are too much. All right, so let's watch this Forbes video on it though. Just music. Hold on. Don't want to play copyrighted music here. Yeah, I'm just gonna mute this, but we can read it though. I can read it to you guys. Oh God. Good morning, gamer. Thank you for joining us here. Fulton County Grand Jury recommended even more indictments, including against Lindsey Graham and Michael Flynn. So, the Georgia Special Grand Jury that heard evidence on former President Donald Trump and his allies' efforts to overturn 2020 election recommended even more people be indicted than prosecutors eventually charged. So the Fulton County Grand Jury, the same people who indicted Donald Trump and his alleged co-conspirators, are now wanting to indict even more people for no reason. Nobody really asked them to, but still they're insisting on more indictments. So we don't know why. So let's see if they explain themselves here. It's more music. Including Republican senators, as the final report was unsealed Friday following months of secrecy. So these Republican senators they want to indict. The final report of special grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, that heard evidence regarding Trump and his allies. Trying to overturn the 2020 election, but did not bring charges themselves, was unsealed on Friday. After prosecutors previously fought to keep most of the report private until the charges of the case were brought last month. So in other words, like, oh, no, keep the secret. Keep the secret until we at least file the charges first. The report reveals the majority of the jurors recommended dozens of people charged in the probe. Dozens. Not just 19, but dozens. But people say, like, well, they were all indicted. Yeah, you can indict a ham sandwich. The indictments don't matter. I could be indicted tomorrow for alleged crimes I committed. You committed out there. So indictments are meaningless. This is step one in a long process. So now the report they wanted to indict dozens of people. What are we talking about? 35, 40 people? Come on. Excuse me. Well, 19 were ultimately charged after a regular grand jury heard the case. As the special grand jury couldn't bring charges directly themselves, and only one person, Trump campaign operative Mike Roman, was indicted without being named in the report. Mike Roman. Among the 21 people who the special grand jury recommended to be indicted are Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, former Senator David Perdue of Georgia, and Kelly Loeffler, another senator from Georgia at one point. Attorney Cleta Mitchell and former Trump advisor Michael Flynn, far-right attorney Lynn Wood, and Trump advisor Boris Epstein? I don't know. So these are all the people who wanted to indict. The grand jury largely recommended the high-profile, unindicted individuals only be charged with racketeering. as all 19 defendants later were, though it was also recommended charges against Purdue for filing false documents in connection with persistent, repeated communications directed at multiple Georgia officials and employees after the election. Jurors also recommended more charges against people involved in the fake elector scheme, in which GOP officials submitted a false slate of electors to Congress claiming Trump won Georgia, including against Mitchell and 13 of the 16 electors, some who later took immunity deals. The vote breakdown shows that fewer jurors were in favor of indicted Lindsey Graham and Kelly Loeffler. 13 voted in favor of indicting Graham and 14 for Loeffler, versus 7 and 6 who voted against, respectively. While Flynn got 20 votes and Purdue got 17 votes for racketeering and 16 votes for false documents. A footnote in the report notes one of the dissenting jurors believed that Purdue and Loeffler comments were made after the 2020 election, pandered to their political base, but did not give rise to being guilty of a criminal conspiracy, which is exactly what Trump did. I mean, Trump pandered to his base with this whole stolen election thing. So I don't. This is ridiculous, man. This is like a waste of time, and people dicking around talking about, oh yes, he committed a conspiracy. He did. They did. All they 19 did, but these people, no, we don't know yet. We want to indict him, but we really don't have enough evidence for this. Who were charged by the grand jury. We don't know why Graham, Loeffler, Purdue, Flynn, and others in the report ultimately weren't charged. The grand jury proceedings that resulted in the indictments are secret. So there's no indication of why some people were charged and not others. The final report reveals votes on indictments but doesn't give reasoning. More music. Behind why a special grand jury believed that people should or should not be charged. What to watch for. The election interference case will start going to trial this fall, when a trial set for at least attorneys Kenneth Cheesebro and Sidney Powell will start October 23rd. A decision is still pending on whether other defendants will be tried then or later. The grand jury report does raise the possibility of legal proceedings that could result in a hung jury that is not unanimous. So a hung jury basically means that not all 12 jurors agree with the verdict. So let's say if there's 11 that decide that these defendants are guilty, but one says they're not guilty, that's called a hung jury at that point. Either A, and then the judge declares a mistrial. So the options would be A, to retry them again, start the process all over again, or B, just give up on the case and say we're not going to try it again. So that'd be up to the prosecutor's office there, to the district attorney. Even after months of hearing evidence in the case, one of the people named in the report ultimately was in charge was Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. So they wanted to charge like a bunch of people. They wanted to charge a shit ton of people. Jones hasn't been indicted yet, but could be in the future, as Fani Willis was barred from bringing charges against him after hosting a fundraiser with the Democrat Party. A special prosecutor has been appointed to determine whether charges should be brought against Jones. After the final report shows 19 jurors voted for him to be charged in conjunction with the fake elector scheme, and 10 thought he should be indicted for racketeering. It's like the special grand jury was convened in May 2022 to hear evidence as part of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's investigation into Trump and his allies' effort to overturn an election. As a special grand jury, jurors could not actually vote on the indictments themselves, but rather produce the final report. recommending indictments, which Willis then used to make the case to a regular grand jury. I don't know. And that actually brought charges against defendants. The special grand jury was dissolved in January after producing their final report. Oh, sorry. Which is based on interviews with 75 witnesses, but only limited portions of the report were released. As Willis argued, it wouldn't be fair to those indicted in the probe to release the full report before they were charged. The portions released in February said that only the grand jury recommended some witnesses to be indicted for perjury, and revealed the grand jury found by unanimous vote that there's no widespread. Oh wait. Am I reading that right? Oh no. The portions released in February said that the grand jury recommended some witnesses be indicted for perjury. And let me make sure I'm reading this right. And revealed that the grand jury found by unanimous vote that there was no widespread voter fraud in 2020. Okay, I got it now. That justified Trump's efforts to overturn it. The regular grand jury then voted in August to indict the 19 defendants who were ultimately charged as part of the probe, with prosecutors alleging they constituted a criminal racketeering enterprise to unlawfully conspire to overturn the vote count. All pleaded not guilty to the charges. Okay. That's that. So the grand jury wanted to indict even more people. Like, it wasn't 19. The 19 weren't enough. Instead, they wanted to charge even more people with these ridiculous charges. Like, this is why I always make the argument that there's no way Trump can get a fair trial in Fulton County. Like, there's absolutely no way he can get that fair trial. Because we're talking about, at the very least, you have a Democrat as a district attorney. You have the sheriff who's a Democrat. You have around 75% of Fulton County voted for Joe Biden. So when you get the jury pool out of just Fulton County, it's going to be very difficult for any defendants to get a fair trial. It's going to be very difficult for any of these defendants to get a fair trial. So all that tells me is that this is the reason why this case should be going to federal court in Georgia. That way you can get the jury pool out of the entire state instead of just one county, which overwhelmingly voted for Joe Biden and Democrats who are looking for any reason to try to convict Trump. So let's see what else I can talk about. Yeah, I could do one more story, I guess. Let's see. Hello. Hi, Dust. Let's see. What can I talk about? Something else that's interesting. I wonder if there's other breaking news here. Because I'm going to talk about some breaking news here, because just like I just talked about the Georgia grand jury looking to indict even more defendants in the Donald Trump alleged RICO scheme from Georgia. So wait a minute. I know what to talk about. I just got to find it though. Let's do it here. Let's see, where is it? So the same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump in his 19 co-defendants for the RICO charges are the same exact grand jury that indicted a bunch of protesters from Cop City in the same county. So they indicted a bunch of people who were having the nerve to protest Cop City, which is something I wanted to talk about because I just remembered. So we are going to watch 61 Cop City opponents hit with RICO charges by Georgia Republican AG. So this is a Republican Attorney General. that apparently charged. You know what? The MSNBC clip is shorter, but I'm gonna watch a Democracy Now! Clip too because let me just actually do this though. Where is it? Let's see. Let's do this. Let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to respond to this. Trump is clearly guilty. You can call people directly and ask to change or recount votes without going through the right process. So Trump isn't any more corrupt. He's just not as good at it. You can't. Okay, I see. Trump is clearly guilty. You can't call people directly and ask to change or even recount vote without going through the right processes. Trump isn't any more corrupt. He's just not good at it. Look, if you're referring to the phone call to the Secretary of State of Georgia, I mean, that's not what I didn't get that sense out of that phone call. The parts that I've heard at least start talk about Donald Trump doesn't say you need to find these votes for me in order to win for me to win Georgia. What he said was, I need to find 11,000 votes, whatever the number was exactly. He didn't. He said, I. You know, he didn't say you, Secretary of State, you find these votes for me so I can win Georgia. He said, I. To me, that's not enough evidence to say that, yes, he's definitely guilty. If he would have said you need to find these votes, then that's like, okay, fine. Even, I understand now. That's evidence. That's definitely evidence. It does not mean he's guilty. It just means it's definitely evidence. And let's see what else. You can't call directly and ask to change or even recount votes without going through the right processes. Yeah, I mean, you can't. He went to court for multiple recounts. I do know that. So he did lose all these cases, but he did go to court on it. And he didn't. Did he ask the Secretary of State for a recount? He just said he needed 11. He needed to find 11,000 votes. Here's the thing: when it comes to criminal court, you need what's called beyond a reasonable doubt, which means that you have to be very, very sure that he's guilty, and all the defense has to do is create reasonable doubt, which is easy in this case because you don't have Trump or any of these co-defendants saying we need to change the results of this election. I mean, that right there, that's like the smoking gun they're looking for. And they really don't have that. I mean, they have circumstantial evidence that Trump and his co-conspirators could have, allegedly did that and try to overturn the election. But ultimately, they don't have that smoking gun that says, yes, he definitely did it, which is why we need to convict them. So let's talk about the Georgia RICO, the indictments over the Cop City protesters in Georgia. So I'm going to play some of this from Chris Hayes.
Ever since Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis brought a racketeering indictment against Donald Trump and his co-defendants, we've talked a lot about Georgia's particularly expansive version of that RICO law. It creates real legal peril for the ex-president and his co-conspirators, and it seems to be an appropriate tool to use against the transgression of their illegitimate and fundamental...
See what Chris says. See what Chris Hayes says there. It's like, well, they have an expansive view of the RICO law in Georgia, and that's a good thing. That way, Trump, they'd be able to charge Trump and his co-conspirators. But now, if you look back here, it says, if you look behind Chris Hayes, it says double-edged sword. And the problem with that now is Cop City protesters are being charged under that same RICO law. The 61 Cop City protesters being charged under that same RICO law, which is a major problem now. All of a sudden now MSNBC is like, oh shit, we didn't expect that. Well, let's just say Republicans are the bad guys here. Right, let's continue.
Project to overturn the election. The very breadth of that law can be a real double-edged sword, as people in Georgia, particularly defense attorneys, will be among the first to tell you. We got an example of that yesterday when the very same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump also indicted 61 community.
I can't laugh because I do that too. I kind of do that a lot. So yeah, so I just found that funny. Let's keep going.
Activists and others, many of whom were attempting to stop the construction of a new police training facility. Now,
No problem, Dust. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, yeah. I mean, in on civil court, yeah, civil court. If this is going to civil court, it's called preponderance of the evidence, which means is it more likely that it happened than it didn't? So it's like 51-49 basically. If you believe that he's 51% guilty, then you get to vote that he's guilty and has to pay money. What happened in the E. Jean Carroll case, if you remember that woman, excuse me, sorry. I did a video the other day about her, which basically a judge ruled that Trump smeared her again or again, and he has to pay more money now. So yeah, the E. Jean Carroll case was a civil case, which means preponderance of the evidence, which means if the jury thought he's 51, Trump is a 51% chance he was guilty, then they get to convict him and make him pay money. In a criminal case, which is what this is, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, which means there can be no doubt that Donald Trump and his co-conspirators are guilty. That's a much higher standard of proof, and I don't think Fani Willis has that proof. She has a circumstantial case at best, but ultimately that's not enough. I don't think that's enough to convict Donald Trump or any of his co-conspirators. Because here's the one thing about Trump: he has high-priced lawyers, and they know how to create reasonable doubt. They're masters at it. So the chances are he gets convicted in Georgia or any other state is almost zero at this point. But that's my personal opinion. I'm not a lawyer, so we'll see what happens, But for now, that's my opinion. So let's continue with this.
Now, some of the people involved in that have been accused of specific crimes, like throwing Molotov cocktails at police, for example, or approaching officers with weapons in a threatening manner. But what this application of Georgia's RICO statute does is that it also rolls up a whole bunch of people who did things like get a $62 reimbursement for food and a $12 reimbursement for glue.
Oh my God, that's so absurd. Hey, if you got reimbursed $61 for food, then you get to be charged under this expansive RICO law in Georgia. If you got reimbursed $11.91 for glue, then you get to be charged under the RICO indictment in Georgia. And these protesters are not Donald Trump or his co-conspirators. They don't have a lot of money for lawyers, so they basically have to use public defenders. Or I'm not sure if there's some sort of fundraiser for attorney's fees for these people. I know that Indy of INN, one of the co-founders, talked about creating some sort of fund, some kind of GoFundMe campaign or something like that. I'm not sure if that's somebody else already done that. If they have, I would promote it here, but as far as I know, it hasn't happened yet. Dust James says the entire imperialist duopoly are the bad guys. I 100% agree with that, though. That's definitely something I agree with.
As part of the conspiracy, these people are now looking at 5 years in prison, raising a whole lot of concern from legal experts and civil libertarians. Sherilyn Ifill, former president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, wrote today, quote, "These charges against Stop Cop City activists and bail fund organizers by the Georgia Attorney General threaten democratic activism."
Bail fund organizers. So if you also created a bail fund to help out these Cop City protesters, you also get to be charged under the Georgia indictments or the Georgia RICO law. So I meant to say. My brain's going a million miles an hour, and when I try to talk, it's like, bleh, so I have to take a deep breath. So if you are a bail fund organizer, you also get to be indicted under the Georgia RICO law. That's what I meant to say. Instead, it just came out like, bleh. So let's keep going.
And effective organizing. Josie Duffy Rice is a lawyer and criminal justice reporter based in Atlanta. She's been very closely following this case, and she's the host of the podcast Unreformed, which is phenomenal, by the way, and she joins me now.
Yeah. Chris Hayes thinks your podcast is phenomenal. There's something wrong there because he's just a corporate stooge.
Josie, first...
well, I don't need to hear any more of this. That's basically now I want to go to... I wonder if there's like a local news report on this.
Dozens of activists.
This is like a 27-second clip, though. I'm looking for like local news in Georgia.
Dozens of activists have now been indicted for protesting a proposed police training center in Atlanta. 61 people were indicted under Georgia's RICO Act, arguing they supported a violent movement to stop the project. Prosecutors say many of the suspects are professed anarchists who want to abolish police altogether. Several are also facing domestic terrorism and money laundering charges. Those opposed to the center say they're worried that it'll cause environmental damage in the majority black area of the state.
Oh, wow. Get a load of that. Prosecutors, oh, well, we're worried about all this damage causing all this rioting is causing environmental damage to black neighborhoods. You see how SJW politics really is being used against protesters and people that are trying to protest the government. You see how that works? It's just ridiculous. You know, it's like, it's just absurd. Is there anything else? Definitely not watching Sam Cedar. It's a boring motherfucker, and I'm not going to put my tiny audience to sleep. I may have to go with the Democracy Now! Clip to get more information. Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do. Wait, what's that? Oh, see, never mind. Okay, so let's watch the Democracy Now! Clip on this.
We're beginning
If I need a bathroom break, so I'll be back in 2 minutes, so excuse me. All right, I'm back. Let's do this real quick.
beginning today's show in Atlanta, Georgia, where the state's Republican Attorney General has announced a sweeping new RICO indictment against 61 activists and others he accuses of being part of a, quote, criminal enterprise to stop Cop City, a massive $90 million police training complex that's facing widespread opposition and ongoing protests. The charges were brought in Fulton County and approved by the same grand jury that indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 of his associates on RICO.
All right, that's the big one there. It's the same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump and his co-conspirators. This is the same grand jury now that has indicted these 61 co-defendants on the same Georgia RICO law. So it's not just, it wasn't just about Trump. It was about getting the Cop City protesters too. Wash my hair. I did. That's the thing. I mean, it's not like it takes me forever to wash my hands.
Racketeering charges brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is a Democrat. At a news conference Tuesday, Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr and John Fowler, head of Georgia's prosecution division, laid out their allegations and why they brought the case in Fulton County.
As alleged in the indictment, the defendants are members of Defend the Atlanta Forest, an anarchist, anti-police, and anti-business extremist organization. We contend these 61 defendants together have conspired to prevent the construction of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center by conducting, coordinating, and organizing acts of violence, intimidation, and property destruction.
Why Fulton County and not DeKalb County? Georgia racketeering law allows that, and we availed ourselves of the Georgia racketeering law to do that. Anywhere that a predicate act or an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy occurred, in any county where that occurred is where you can indict the case, and we chose Fulton County. When you allege a conspiracy to commit racketeering, there's no requirement under Georgia law that they know each other. The whole purpose of the Georgia racketeering law.
Wow. Get a load of that. He's like, well, under Georgia law, there's no requirement for defendants to know each other. So if you, for example, decided to donate to a bail fund to help release Cop City protesters, it's possible that you could be charged under the Georgia RICO law for that reason. You can. That's unbelievable. That's so broad that it's ridiculous. That's so broad. That's insanely broad. I'm surprised that they can get away with that.
Law is that they're all working in some way, shape, or form towards the same goal, and they formed a conspiracy to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that every person has to talk to every single person. All you have to do is commit one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy with the others, and then you can be
like donating to a bail fund. I mean, that's again because that one tweet that I showed talked about, bail fund activists. So it's like
guilty of racketeering. So that's why, is because it's a large case, and so if you want to tie everybody together and they're all trying to do the same thing, racketeering is the appropriate charge.
In addition to the 61 racketeering indictments, 5 people were also indicted on domestic terrorism and first-degree arson charges. 3 people
domestic terrorism
with the Atlanta Solidarity Fund were each indicted on 15 counts of money laundering for their work to provide bail money and legal aid for protesters.
See, bail money and legal aid. At that point, you could be charged under this Georgia RICO law. It's absurd. They're really trying to tamp down on the First Amendment right to protest with this indictment.
The indictment was issued on September 5th and filed August 29th. The indictment alleges the protests included violent anti-police sentiment that's now one of the, quote, core driving motives of protests to stop Cop City. For more, we go to Atlanta, where we're joined.
And I wonder why people are anti-police. I mean, I can't believe the Georgia officials are shocked by this. Like, why? You wonder why people are anti-police after everything that's happened in this country with law enforcement.
Joined by Kiana Jones, a Stop Cop City organizer for Community Movement Builders, and Devin Franklin, a movement policy counsel at the Southern Center for Human Rights. He worked over a decade as a public defender in Atlanta. His group has issued a call for lawyers to represent the 61 people now facing RICO charges. We welcome you both to...
Yeah. As the rest of that is just discussion with those two people. But yeah, this is bullshit. I mean, what these people have some nerve to try to tamp down the First Amendment and be anti-protest. Like, they're trying to tamp down our First Amendment rights. Like, it isn't right. It's just ridiculous and outrageous. And who knows? I mean, at that point, indictments, anybody can be indicted, but at the same time, it's like, okay, do they have it again, in criminal court, is beyond a reasonable doubt. So they have to have beyond the reasonable doubt in order to convict somebody of any crime, not just any crime. Even if it's insurrection or RICO indictments, they have to have beyond the reasonable doubt. So that's the legal standard. So I think these charges are bullshit, but hopefully, they'll be able to get out of this and continue protesting that Cop City is being built there. All right, well, I think I'm just going to wrap up here because I ain't got much else to say today, and I'm already tired. I have a long day, and my throat is kind of dry. So I'm going to wrap up now instead of keep babbling away for the next 20, 30 minutes and not have much to say. So I want to thank everybody for watching today, the stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back next Friday for sure. And also subscribe to my channel and subscribe to INN and follow me on Twitter and all that good stuff. All that information should be in the link in the description box below. That's my Twitter right there. My Twitter handle. Oh, thank you, Dust. I appreciate it. And there's my Twitter handles. You want to follow me there. And my link tree should be in the description box below. All that good stuff. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. And I'll see you guys next Friday. And by the way, I'm uploading a lot more individual videos to my channel. So I did at least 4 in the last 2 days. So make sure you check out my channel for that too. And I'm going to see you guys next Friday at I don't know what time yet. We'll see. It'll be worked out, but for maybe most likely 12:30 or 1 o'clock. But we'll see. So I'll see you guys next Friday, and I'm out of here.